Hi there, welcome to my channel. I'm Julie. Today we're going to do a travel layout. Did you know that travel layouts are one of the top topics that scrapbookers love to document? In today's video, I'm going to share with you some helpful tips on how to resize your photos. I am lucky enough to travel with these awesome ladies, and we also work together. So all week long, we are sharing our travel videos. In my video today, I want to share with you a tip on how to make your photos a little bit more cohesive on your page. Today's video was inspired by not one, but two layouts. The first layout is this layout right here. I remember when Erin posted that video, I just wanted her to pack up that gorgeous layout and send it to me. So I thought, you know what, maybe I'll just reproduce that layout. Let me bring in the sketch that I'll be using today, and here's the sketch. And yes, it has all of the dimensions, and it even comes with accompanied artwork. I think that that's a lot of fun. So for this sketch here, and you've probably heard us say this before, even though the sketch is dictating 4x3 photos and 3x4 photos, it's okay to change it up a little bit. I did stay true to these photos here, so those are a 5x7 and this is a 6x3, and I thought that that was kind of a unique size to have at the bottom, and it gave me the opportunity to really showcase the beach. So on this side here, I'm changed it up and I'm going to add my supporting photos. So those are all the little detail shots that you take when you're on a beach or you're on a cruise. It doesn't matter where you are, but these are all of my little detail shots, and I basically just zoomed right in. For my next lot of photos, you can see here that there's a little kind of grid or a cluster of them, and that got me thinking, okay, what can I do that has a little series of photos that would really look good together? And I came across these photos here, and I love them because of the gorgeous blue sky. But this is not how they started. I have 4 photos of 4 of the girls, and I just love the way that this frames out my entire layout. Now, before we pick our papers, let me share with you how I got my photos to all match, if you want, as far as size and content. I wanted to make sure that the girls were like equally balanced in this photo. So I'm going to bring you into PicMonkey, and I'm going to share with you how I achieved this look. So let's go through some of the steps I took to make those photos look cohesive on my layout. I am in PicMonkey, and I'm going to start with a 6x4 canvas. For the rows, I'm going to do 4, and for the columns, I'm going to do 6. And now I have a nice canvas, and it is separated by 1 inch. I know that this is a 3x4 inch, and that's going to make it a lot easier when I'm trying to size my photos. So I'm going to add a photo on my canvas. I'm going to click on graphics, add your graphics, go to my computer, and I am going to bring in this photo. And you can see that I have tons of photos that I was looking at. I have my first photo here of Katie. I'm going to go back into graphics, and I'm going to bring in a second photo. The second photo is a photo of Chelsea, so I'm going to bring that in. And if I would have put that on my layout, it's perfectly fine, but to me, I wanted them to be equal value. And what do I mean by that? This photo was taken closer, and this photo was definitely taken further back. Now, I will lose some of this really beautiful scenery that you see here, but my focus for my layout today was these lovely ladies. I am going to kind of pull down. I am not cropping anything right now. I am just extending, and I see that Chelsea is pretty much in the middle of these 3 squares. And here, Katie, let me turn off, if you see those little red lines, that is the align and snap. Let me turn that off so that I can move a little bit freer. But I want to make sure that I can see my subject, and my subject is getting there. I'm just gonna pull that out a little bit more, but you see how instantly the people in the photos are the same value. So let's take a look at these two photos. And although the photos were taken exactly at the same location, you can see that the sky is not exactly the same color. And you can see that I could definitely straighten out this photo. So I'm going to click on this photo and I'm going to click the rotate, and I am going to straighten out the photo a tiny little bit. It wasn't off by much, but when you put 4 photos together, you do see if one photo is a little bit off. Now you can see that it's going off the canvas, but that is not going to do anything to my printing. So now that the photo is nice and straight, I'm going to bump up the color a tiny little bit. I'm just going to do an auto adjust and see how that looks. And I think that it looks really nice. We're going to go here on the other side, do an auto adjust, and you can see that the colors are more vibrant. But this here, probably the sun was directly above, and this one the sun was behind. Let's try and bump up the color a little bit. I'm going to go into color, and I'm going to saturate this color here. I'm going to pull that out and make it a little bit more vibrant. And I like the way that this turned out. It has the same or very close value in color, and my subjects now are almost at the same height, and I like that too. This is how I was able to achieve my completed layout, by playing with my photos and looking at them side by side. Now if I want to continue on working on this project, I'm going to add a page, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to go into graphics, and I'm going to bring in the other 2 photos that I want to use on this layout. So I have a photo of Janice, which I'm going to put here, and then I'm going to go get the photo of Jama. So you can see here that that is a gorgeous photo on its own because it has the entire scenery, but I wanted to again focus on the ladies in the photo. So I'm going to send that one to the back so that I can look at both photos side by side. And now that I'm working on a complete project, I can go back up and see the photos that I've already edited. And again, I'm being mindful of the space where my subject is. So I'm going to go back down, and Jama looks like she's in the right location, and she seems to be also taken up the same space as the other 2. So we're going to do that for Janice. I am going to pull that. Although that big boulder is really cool, the person I want to highlight is the person in front. And you can see that I'm really stretching that out quite a bit. So at this point here, I want to see both of those photos. I'm going to double click, and I'm going to crop that down to a 3x4, just so that I can see both photos side by side. Let's go in and see. And you can see that even though I was working with a grid, they're not exactly the same size. So I'm going to go back to Jama's photo, and I am going to enlarge that so that I have 3 squares for Jama and I have 3 squares for Janice. I think that that looks good. So we're going to bump up the color. We're going to do an auto adjust. Look at that. And an auto adjust again. The next thing I would do is I would take a look at the other photo and make sure that everything is kind of the same. And I can move this up a little tiny bit. And I know that I can move this up. And do you see how big I actually blew this photo up to make them all the same size? Let's take a look at these ones one more time. And there you have it. This is how I was able to achieve these really great shots of my friends, and I see them more Yes, the scenery has been compromised or sacrificed a tiny little bit, but I think that this is a really good way when you are trying to add a lot of people shots to your scrapbook layout. If you make them all the same size, it really looks intentional. Let's go back to the craft table and I will show you how this layout came together. Now that we've gone through how these photos were sized, do you see how it makes it look a little bit more cohesive on my page? I have a lot of people pictures, and sometimes when there's a lot of people in the photos, it becomes a little bit overwhelming on one page. But by making these all kind of like the same value, if you want, I have a nice big focal photo here, and then I have my supporting photo. I think that I've created a really good balance. Now, it wasn't that hard because I was able to take all of my inspiration from this sketch. I wanted to point out to you that we also included in this book little QR codes, and you're probably wondering, what's that all about? When you purchase your digital download and you're at a crop and you kind of want to see how this layout came together, just grab your phone, hit that QR code, and it's going to take you directly to this YouTube video where you can see how this layout came together. The first thing I did for this layout, and it's a very small change, I made these photos 3x3, and that was just a preference on how all of this was going to line up. All right, let's take a look at the paper selection that I'm going to pull out for this layout, and this might surprise you. Now, I really wanted to use the same papers that Erin did on her layout. I really love those colors, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to try and use papers that are outside the box so that you can see that you can pretty much use anything if you look at the colors primarily. So let me pull out my two paper selections. My two paper selection for this layout is coming from Memories of Bloom, and I'm going to pair it up with some of this wood grain paper. Now, I know that Erin used this one and I was really tempted, but I didn't have all of the other papers, but that's okay. I'm going to show you how I'm going to make this work. Let's move the photos out of the way. And we're going to start with our base pages. So my base page is from the Memories of Bloom, and this is the scrapbooking kit, and it's the one-sided sheet. So I'm going to add that for my base. Now I will be trimming that down. Don't you worry, I'm not going to waste any of that gorgeous paper, but I just want to show you where we're going. Now there is a direction, so I am going to flip this so that it goes horizontally, and I thought that this was really reminiscing of the ocean, and I love this color. For my next pattern paper, I'm going to pull this one here. This is pretty bright for me. I usually tend to go on the lighter side. This is a gorgeous paper. Even the floral would work, but let me show you why I pick this side. So this is the side I'm going to use, and you know what? Now that I'm looking at both of them, I think that I want the direction to go vertical. So always take a look at your pattern, even if it's subtle. You may want to take a moment to kind of examine your paper closely and see. So I'm going to add this paper, and the reason why, let me bring back my photos. Do you see the green in both my shirt and Chelsea's shirt? And when I bring my photos here and all of this blue, these are not popping up just yet. Give me a moment and I'll show you what else I'm going to bring in. But do you see that green? How everything pops. Jema's glasses were really bright and fun. So I think that this is going to be a really fun paper to pair up with the photos. The next paper I'm going to bring is this one right here. It is from the Country Woods. And I was inspired to look at this collection when I saw Erin's beautiful layout. Now, I could have easily used this for the background because this to me is also screaming beach, but I'm going to use this side, and the reason why, let me bring back my little supporting photos. Do you see how I have a lot of sand and brown? And I thought that this was a really good pattern to bring in, so I'm going to sneak that underneath, and it just brings the warmth that I need on this layout by just adding this color. So I really like that. And then, of course, I'm probably going to bring in some Secret C to match some of my photos. I don't think Secret C is really going to do it for these photos here because I want that blue sky to shine because that day was pretty awesome. So this to me is not really working. I think I'm going to bring in this green to match this pattern here, and I think that this is going to work. I might have to do a little white border. I might have to do something because the green and the teal is probably not working as well as I thought it would. But you know what? I think I have the beginning of a really good color combination for these photos. I'm going to go ahead and cut everything down, and I'm going to follow this pretty awesome sketch that I'm working from, and we'll come back and we'll fine tune some of the colors and maybe even add white borders around some of my photos. Let's take a look at the foundation pages now that they're all put together. And you know what? I really, really love this combination. I probably wouldn't have picked it, but that's what I like about working with a sketch. When you work with a sketch, some of the decisions are made for you and you tend to explore a little bit more. And I want to show you something here. Now, yes, it did take me a little bit of time to glue these all down, but I have this piece and I have a full sheet. I really like this paper and I was glad that I was able to save some. So sometimes people ask me like, why do you add multiple layers if you want on your foundation pages? It's simply because I can extend the paper I love. And this is a very, very good example of that. The other thing, you're probably wondering, what is this all about? Well, this is my base page now. And my base page, I use, this is, I think, champagne. It's an older color that I have in my stash. And I think I learned this from Andrea, if I remember correctly. I saw her where she was using papers or cardstock that the colors are retired or she doesn't love them as much. And that is a really good tip to, you know, why always use white? Because we go through white like that. I don't know about you, but I go through white very, very quickly. Now the add-on of the Secret C cardstock is truly perfection, and let me show you why. Do you see our photos that we are documenting today? There's some black in our photos, but the Secret C is just a little bit lighter, and it just really grounds this side of the page. And then I want to show you here where I have my three 3x3s and I have my little row. Now I could have done this, but they don't really stand out. And I want them to stand out a little bit more. Here's my little critter. I have to make sure he's on the right side. And they don't really stand out. These two here I print at home and I was able to do a white border. I wasn't able to do a white border on these ones, but you know, that's an easy fix. I'm just going to cut some white cardstock and possibly put a white border. We'll get to that in a second, but I think that by simply adding my piece right here, and then I'm going to add another piece, so I'm doing that the 1/4 inch bigger every time. I think that this is going to really, you see how my photos now look instantly a little bit brighter? So I definitely think this is a really good solution for this row that I have going on here. So I'm going to do that. And now it's just a case of what do I want to do for my grid in the middle. Remember this one here? I love the way that these photos are playing up on each other. It looks like Katie has taken a picture of Chelsea down here. That was a little intentional, I guess, but when I was going through all of the photos, I was mainly looking at the blue sky. Before we do the embellishments, I just wanted to touch on the title and the matting I did for my photos. Sometimes we overstress about all of the things, and I am not different. And I just went back to my trusted formula, if you want. And usually when I struggle, I just go back to the darkest color on my page and I use it to frame out my photos. And I think that this is a really good color. Now, this title here was done with my Cricut. And I will have the Cricut Design Space file listed for you down below. If you're an Access user, you'll be able to cut this for free. If not, these are Cricut fonts, and I guess you would have to purchase the fonts to cut it the way it looks here. If you look at this title, I kind of morphed two designs, if you want, together. And that's what I love about this book. This book has 10 full layouts, and you can mix and match. This sketch is the sketch that you can find on page 26, and the artwork inspiration, you can find it on page 21, and that was Erin's layout. And if you look at her title, I kind of use that as an inspiration, and I made it my very own. So I really love my title. I love how my photos are popping off my page. Now, before I adhere this cluster down, I want to show you something. Again, if you look at this layout, or this sketch, I should say, Janice included some pocket cards at the back to add more photos. I decided that I was just going to do tags, and this is where I'm going to add my journaling. Now, if I want this to slide and not fall down, I want to show you a little trick. I'm pretty sure you've seen this before. I think I've picked up this tip from Janice. Use some of your scraps to elevate the entire panel. Why is this important on a layout? If you just do dots, eventually your photos and this whole frame is going to kind of warp, even if it's inside your book. By simply adding a shim, let's call this a little shim because that's what it is. And I have 4 pieces of cardstock, and they've all been glued together. I basically took my little tag and I framed around it so that this will stop, and it's also much easier to pull out. Now, these ones here are decorative, so I'm going to adhere this down. I'm going to adhere these down. These are not going to move, but then this one here is going to go right in the front, and it's so much easier to pull it in and out. I wanted to point out a few things that I did to embellish my tag. I did my little text box in Word, and then I brought in, because I was looking for embellishments, I brought in this really cool set, and it's been embossed. It probably doesn't pick up here on the camera, but it's just a little detail. I also did it for this one here. And if you're wondering where the tag is coming from, it was from this collection. This was a Christmas collection last year, but it has really awesome tags, and I really love them. This is just the perfect size to add your journaling. So let's talk about embellishments. Sometimes I'm asked, where do you start for your clusters? Well, you know what? Let me take you back here. This is in back of my desk. Do you have a little bin like this, offcuts or cuts from previous projects? When I was looking through here, I found this really pretty vellum piece, so that's going to make an appearance. And I flip back here, and then I knew that I had these little embellishments. This was from a previous project. The color is not exactly the same, but it's in the same tones. So this is going to make an appearance. Now that I've picked through some of my pre-made embellishments, I think it's going to be a lot easier to build my clusters. If I look at this sketch, there's a cluster up here, there's one here, there's something at the bottom, and then there's another one. So I'm going to concentrate on this triangle that you see. And I'm also looking throughout the book to get more inspiration and ideas as to what I can bring in. So I was pretty happy when I found this one that was already made. Of course, I'm going to have to cut a few more. And then when I was looking at Erin's layout, she did use this one. So again, I did emboss my tag. I thought that was a nice touch. And if you're like me, you tend to add a few of these inside. You leave them there for another project. So this is a good start. I'm going to have to cut some of these. So this is one of the sets that I'll be using. And I did pull this out originally when I was looking for my clusters, and that reminded me that I already have some. They're already made, and if you look at the color, it's not the exact same color, but it works. It really, really works. So this is going to make an appearance. I'm definitely going to cut more of these little branches, and these are from this die set right here. So I'm going to pull this one out. I wanted to add a little bit more foliage, and I thought of this set here. So this is a little bit unexpected, but do you see this die? It reminded me of some of the plants that were growing by the seaside. Let me cut the pieces that I'll need for this layout. We're going to bring it all in, and we're going to finish this page together. We're going to start with the obvious, which is this really nice vellum piece. And you know what? This vellum piece actually grounds all of my embellishments. I'm going to snake that underneath. I want one at the top and one at the bottom. So we're going to start with that. So if I'm bringing some here, I talked about having a cluster up here. So we're going to add one here. And then I talked about having a cluster down here. So we're going to add those in. Next up are the sand dollars, and I just embossed it, and then I used my blending brush, added a little bit of crumb cake just to really highlight the details, and I think that that's just enough. So we're going to add one here. Now let me see, did I remember? Oh yes, I remembered. Sometimes I forget. I remembered that I wanted to tuck things underneath. So I've got this one. I have this one here. This is a little bit bigger, so we're going to put this one down here. And on this side, I'm going to bring another one. So you can see how I'm starting to build these. This is the background. This is the biggest piece that I have for my cluster. And then with this same collection, you have these really nice, delicate pieces. So I just picked a color from the pattern to bring a little bit of a pop. So I'm going to add one here, I'm going to add one here, and I'm going to keep on building. Remember, I wanted to bring a little bit more foliage, and I got the inspiration from this one. It's nice and airy, and this one here, I think is going to fit really nicely right down here. I really like that. I like that I can see all of my pieces through it. So this is a unique piece. You don't have to put the same piece everywhere. I think that this is going to be my main cluster. I think I'm going to bring in a pop of green because this is the main cluster. I might move these ones around, but for now, we have the beginning of something that's looking pretty nice. So let's bring in all of my little pieces. Remember, these were all done. So I feel like I'm cheating, but I like that I keep some of these pieces for future projects, and this project is perfect. So we're going to add, I think I'm going to add this little guy down here. I might add another one in the back. I've got a couple of shells, so I think we'll do that. So what I'm doing now is I'm distributing shapes and color. Maybe this will go here or here. I think I'll move that up there. I can pull this out. It's kind of hiding a little bit, but you see how it really frames the photo, and this takes up the space. Now, if you don't want to do your journaling up here, you could definitely do it in this corner, but I love this cluster. So let's add a couple more pieces. We've got these ones here. This is a little bit brown on brown, so we're going to move that one up. And a little shell that's peeking out. Let me see here. This might work better because it's darker. And maybe I'll do something like that. Do you see how all of the colors were picked from this layout? There's a lot going on here, but it's not taking away from the photos. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to adhere everything down. So at this point, when I'm happy with my cluster, I basically just take liquid glue and I lift the pieces and I add a little bit of glue. I do have to put my head closer to the project, so I'm going to spare you that, and we're going to come back and do a full project review. Let's take a look at the completed layout and the clusters. I'm going to bring these nice and close. I want to show you that don't be afraid to go off the page. I'm just going to flip that over and I am going to snip that off. Take a look at these gorgeous clusters. There's a lot going on here, but they're not taking over. They blend into this double page layout, and I really love how they are kind of hiding and unexpected, very much like what we saw during our adventure that day. Now, if you're interested in this travel guide, it is fabulous. I was able to create this layout in no time at all and focus on details. I took one sketch, I took the artwork inspiration, and also I watched both videos to give me even more insights. Grab your digital copy today. You're going to thank yourself. This was so much fun to put together, and I love the results. Don't forget to come back all week long as we are posting our travel videos to inspire you to scrapbook with intention and get those photos off your phone. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. I hope that you've picked up a few helpful tips, and I will have all of the important links down in the description box below. Have yourself a fantastic day. Thank you for spending some of your creative time with me today. I'll catch you in the next video. Bye for now.